Oh, and welcome, everybody. You poor, unfortunate souls. Do you know what today is? Tonight, specifically. Tonight is one of the most frightful nights of the year. A night so ancient, so spiritual, magical. It's called All Hallows Eve. They say on All Hallows Eve that you can open a gateway, a doorway into the other realm, where spirits, ghosts, ghouls, demons, and other worldly beings can open a portal straight to their realm. And sometimes they will come through into ours. And they just might overstay their welcome. Welcome, guys. Hello, Thomas. Hello, Colton. Hello, Goots. How you guys doing? Yeah. Let me get your link for the Discord real quick. All right. So, everyone, I'm sure you know what this is about. We're here to read some spooky stories. So what do you guys want to start with first? Want to do a classic? You guys want to do something really scary, or something really fucked up, or that'll ruin your life entirely, or want to do something wacky? What are you feeling? I'm a bit of an expert when it comes to spooky stories. You know what? Let's start with the classic. Are you all familiar? I'm sure you all are familiar with Edgar Allan Poe. Edgar Allan Poe was a man born in the 19th century who was very well known for his take on American horror. He wrote poems like The Raven. He also wrote short stories. Some of those short stories are pretty fucked. Welcome, Kiklo. Welcome, Ryan. Am I reading The Raven? I might. I have one in mind. I have a story in mind. It shouldn't take too long, because he wrote a lot of short stories. This story is called The Cask of Amontillado. Not very scary, but you know, we'll start off a little mild. This will set the tone. And I apologize, but there's a lot of verbose wording in this short story. So the gist of what you guys need to know about the story is this is going to feature, let's see. It's going to feature there's only two characters in the story. The main character, the narrator, is a man named Montresor. And the other character is Fortunato. And Montresor does not like Fortunato. But Fortunato does not know this. Fortunato thinks Montresor is good buds with him. So yeah. What he doesn't know won't hurt him, I guess. Or will it? The 1,000 injuries of Fortunato I had borne as best I could. But when he ventured upon insult, I vowed revenge. You, who so well know the nature of my soul, will not suppose, however, that I gave utterance to a threat. At length, I would be avenged. This was a point definitively settled, but the very definitiveness with which it was resolved precluded the idea of risk. I must not only punish, but punish with impunity. A wrong is unredressed when retribution overtakes its redresser. It is equally unredressed when the avenger fails to make himself felt as such to him who has done the wrong. So basically, Montresor is mad, but he wants to get back at Fortunato. But he knows if he's going to get back at Fortunato, he's going to ruin Fortunato's life. It must be understood that neither by word nor deed had I given Fortunato cause to doubt my goodwill. I continued, as was my wont, to smile in his face, and he did not perceive that my smile now was at the thought of his immolation. He had a weak point, this Fortunato. Although in other regards he was a man to be respected and even feared. He prided himself on his connoisseurship in wine. Few Italians have the true virtuoso spirit. For the most part, their enthusiasm is adopted to suit the time and opportunity, to practice imposture upon the British and Austrian millionaires. In painting and gemmery, Fortunato, like his countrymen, was a quack. But in the matter of old wines, he was sincere. In this respect, I did not differ from him materially. I was skillful in the Italian vintages myself, and bought largely whenever I could. But Fortunato and Montresor both had a taste for wine. It was about dusk one evening, during the supreme madness of the carnival season, that I encountered my friend. He accosted me with excessive warmth, for he had been drinking much. The man wore motley. He had on a tight-fitting party-striped dress, and his head was surmounted by the conical cap and bells. I was so pleased to see him that I thought I should never have done wringing his hand. So, Fortunato's dressed to kill. He looks like a court jester. This is like a carnival, like a carnival sort of thing. Carnival in Italy is like this big to-do, at least back in the day. I said to him, "My dear Fortunato, you are luckily met. How remarkably well you are looking today. But I have received a pipe of what passes for Amontillado, and I have my doubts." "How?" said he. "Amontillado? A pipe? Impossible! And in the middle of the carnival." "I have my doubts," I replied. "And I was silly enough to pay the full Amontillado price without consulting you in the matter. You were not to be found, and I was fearful of losing a bargain." "Amontillado?" "I have my doubts." "Amontillado!" "And I must satisfy them. Amontillado! As you are engaged, I am on my way to Lucchesi. If anyone has a critical turn, it is he. He will tell me, Lucchesi cannot tell Amontillado from sherry. And yet some fools will have it that his taste is a match for your own. Let us go. Whither? To your vaults. My friend, no. I will not oppose upon your good nature. I perceive you have an engagement. Lucchesi, I have no engagement. Come. My friend, no. It is not the engagement, but the severe cold with which I perceive you are afflicted. The vaults are insufferably damp. They are encrusted with niter. Let us go nevertheless. The cold is merely nothing. Amontillado! You have been imposed upon, and as for Lucchesi, he cannot distinguish sherry from Amontillado. So basically, Montresor and Fortunato are having a conversation where Montresor is telling Fortunato that he's come across a very rare bottle of wine called Amontillado. And Fortunato is freaking out. And so Montresor is basically baiting him into following him into his house. Thus speaking, Fortunato possessed himself of my arm, putting on a mask of black silk and drawing a roquelaire, fuck, I can't read, closely about my person. I suffered him to hurry me to my palazzo. There were no attendants at home. They had absconded to make merry in honor of the time. I had told them that I should not return until the morning, and had given them explicit orders not to stir from the house. These orders were sufficient, I well knew, to ensure their immediate disappearance, one and all, as soon as my back was turned. I took from their sconces 2 flambeaux, and giving one to Fortunato, bowed him through several suites of rooms to the archway that led into the vaults. I passed down a long and winding staircase, requesting him to be cautious as he followed. We came at length to the foot of the descent, and stood together on the damp ground of the catacombs of the Montresors. The gait of my friend was unsteady, and the bells upon his cap jingled as he strode. So now they're at Montresor's estate, and they're going down to the vaults, which is the cellar. The pipe, said he. It is farther on, said I, but observe the white webwork which gleams from these cavern walls. He turned towards me, and looked into my eyes with 2 filmy orbs that distilled the rheum of intoxication. Niter? He asked at length. Niter, I replied. How long have you had that cough? My poor friend found it impossible to reply for many minutes. It is nothing, he said at last. Come, I said with decision. We'll go back. Your health is precious. You are rich, respected, admired, beloved. You are happy, as once I was. You are a man to be missed. For me, it is no matter. We will go back. You will be ill, and I cannot be responsible. Besides, there is Lucchesi. Enough, he said. The cough is a mere nothing. It will not kill me. I shall not die of a cough. True, true, I replied. And indeed, I had no intention of alarming you unnecessarily. But you should use all proper caution. A draught of this Medoc will defend us from the damps. Here I knocked off the neck of a bottle, which I drew from a long row of its fellows that lay upon the mold. Drink, I said, presenting him the wine. He's giving Fortunato more to drink as they're heading down to the basement. He raised it to his lips with a leer, He paused and nodded to me familiarly, while his bells jingled. "I drink," he said, "to the buried that repose around us." And in these times, the vault, the basement, is where you would bury, especially for rich families like the Montresors, that's where you'd bury your family members, in the basement. "And I to your long life," said Montresor. He again took my arm and we proceeded. "These vaults," he said, "are extensive." "The Montresors," I replied, "were a great and numerous family." "I forget your arms." He's talking about the coat of arms. "A huge human foot door in a field azure. The foot crushes a serpent, rampant, whose fangs are embedded in the heel. And the motto, Nemo me impune lacessit. It's Latin. "Good," he said. The wine sparkled in his eyes and the bells jingled. My own fancy grew warm with the Medoc. We had passed through walls of piled bones, with casks and puncheons intermingling. Into the inmost recesses of the catacombs, I paused again. And this time, I made bold to seize Fortunato by an arm above the elbow. "The niter," I said. "See, it increases. It hangs like moss upon the vaults. We are below the river's bed. The drops of moisture trickle among the bones. Come, we'll go back, ere it's too late. Your cough." "It is nothing," he said. "Let us go on. But first, another draught of the Medoc." I broke and reached him a flagon of de Grave. Or de Grave. Fucking some Frenchy word, I don't know. He emptied it at a breath. His eyes flashed with a fierce light. He laughed and threw the bottle upwards with a gesticulation I did not understand. I looked at him in surprise. He repeated the movement. A grotesque one. "You do not comprehend?" he asked. "Not I," I replied. Basically, Fortunato made some fucking gang sign or something with a bottle as he's, like, holding it up above his head. "Then you are not of the Brotherhood." "How?" "You are not of the Masons." Yes, I said. Yes. "You? Impossible. A Mason?" They're talking about Freemasons. "A Mason," I replied. "A sign," he said. "It is this." So Fortunato doesn't believe that Montresor is a Freemason, so he asks for him a sign to show that he's actually a Freemason. "It is this," I answered, producing a trowel from beneath the folds of my roquelaire. He pulls out a trowel used for, like, actual mason work. "You jest," he exclaimed, recoiling a few paces. "But let us proceed to the Amontillado." "Be it so," I said, replacing the tool beneath the cloak, and again offering him my arm. He leaned upon it heavily. We continued our route in search of the Amontillado. We passed through a range of low arches, descended, passed on, and descending again. Arrived at a deep crypt in which the foulness of the air caused our flambeau, the torch, rather to glow than to flame. At the most remote end of the crypt, there appeared another less spacious. Its walls had been lined with human remains, piled to the vault overhead. In the fashion of the great catacombs of Paris, 3 sides of this interior crypt were still ornamented in this manner. From the 4th, the bones had been thrown down and lay promiscuously upon the earth, forming at one point a mound of some size. Within the wall, thus exposed by the displacing of the bones, we perceived a still interior recess, in depth about 4 feet, in width 3, in height 6 or 7. He's describing the space inside the wall here. It seemed to have been constructed for no special use within itself, but formed merely the interval between 2 of the colossal supports of the roof of the catacombs, and was backed by one of the circumscribing walls of solid granite. He's describing a sort of alcove, a little tiny cubby between the supports in this little deep underground vault. It was in vain that Fortunato, uplifting his dull torch, endeavored to pry into the depths of the recess. Its termination the feeble light did not enable us to see. Too dark. Proceed, I said. Herein is the Amontillado. As for Lucchesi, he is an ignoramus, interrupted my friend, as he stepped unsteadily forward, while I followed immediately at his heels. In an instant he had reached the extremity of the niche, and finding his progress arrested by the rock, stood stupidly bewildered. A moment more, and I had fettered him to the granite. In its surface were 2 iron staples, distant from each other about 2 feet, horizontally. From one of these depended a short chain, from the other a padlock. Throwing the links about his waist, it was but the work of a few seconds to secure it. He was too much astounded to resist. Withdrawing the key, I stepped back from the recess. So basically, as Fortunato was walked up and sort of like in a drunken stupor at the end of the wall here, as he's telling, as Montresor's telling about the wine is there in front of him. He stands in front of a wall where there's 2 braces, 2 shackles, and Montresor takes the opportunity while his friend is stupefied and chains him up to the wall. And locks him there. Pass your hand, I said, over the wall. You cannot help feeling the niter. Indeed, it is very damp. Once more, let me implore you to return. No. Then I will positively leave you, but I must first render you all the little attentions in my power. The Amontillado! Ejaculated my friend. Very poor choice of words in these days. Not yet recovered from his astonishment. True, I replied. The Amontillado. As I said these words, I busied myself among the pile of bones, of which I have before spoken. Throwing them aside, I soon uncovered a quantity of building stone and mortar. Bricks and mortar. With these materials, and with the aid of my trowel, I began vigorously to wall up the entrance of the niche. I had scarcely laid the first tier of my masonry when I discovered that the intoxication of Fortunato had in great measure worn off. The earliest indication I had of this was a low, moaning cry from the depth of the recess. It was not the cry of a drunken man. There was then a long and obstinate silence. I laid the 2nd tier, and the 3rd, and the 4th. And then I heard the furious vibrations of the chain. Montresor is walling off Fortunato in this little cubby. He is building a brick wall. And Fortunato is trying to get free. The noise lasted for several minutes, during which that I might hearken to it with more satisfaction. I ceased my labors and sat down upon the bones. When at last the clanking subsided, I resumed the trowel and finished without without interruption, the 5th, the 6th, and the 7th tier. The wall was now nearly upon a level with my breast. I again paused, and holding the torch above the masonwork, threw a few feeble rays upon the figure within. A succession of loud and shrill screams, bursting suddenly from the throat of the chained form, seemed to thrust me violently back. For a brief moment I hesitated. I trembled. Unsheathing my rapier, I began to grope with it about the recess. But the thought of an instant reassured me. I placed my hand upon the solid fabric of the catacombs and felt satisfied. I reapproached the wall. I replied to the yells of him who clamored. I re-echoed. I aided. I surpassed them in volume and in strength. I did this, and the clamorer grew still. He screamed at the top of his lungs, sort of like in a means to assert dominance. It was now midnight, and my task was drawing to a close. I had completed the 8th, the 9th, and the 10th tier. I had finished a portion of the last and the 11th. There remained but a single stone to be fitted and plastered in. I struggled with its weight. I placed it partially in its destined position. But now there came from out of the niche a low laugh that erected the hairs upon my head. It was succeeded by a sad voice, which I had difficulty in recognizing as that of the noble Fortunato. The voice said, "A very good joke indeed. An excellent jest. We'll have many a rich laugh about it at the palazzo. Over our wine." "The Amontillado," I said. Yes, the Amontillado. But is it not getting late? Will they not be waiting for us at the palazzo? The Lady Fortunato and the rest? Let us be gone." "Yes," I said. "Let us be gone." "For the love of God, Montresor!" "Yes," I said. "For the love of God." But to these words I hearkened in vain for a reply. I grew impatient. I called aloud. "Fortunato!" No answer. I called again. "Fortunato!" No answer still. I thrust a torch through the remaining aperture and let it fall within. There came forth, in return, only a jingling of the bells. My heart grew sick, on account of the dampness of the catacombs. I hastened to make an end of my labor. I forced the last stone into its position. I plastered it up. Against the new masonry, I re-erected the old rampart of bones. For the half of a century, no mortal had disturbed him. In pace requiescat. Requiescat. I fucked that up so bad. I just noticed the fucking thing went away. Idiot. Yeah, if the fucking, the background goes away at any point, guys, let me know so I can fix it, because it's, like, not wanting to stay up for some reason. But yeah, that's the cask of Amontillado. So yeah, Montresor fucking basically buries Fortunato alive in the wall. On some petty bullshit. Like some petty bullshit. Yeah, what the fuck is up with this? Why are you doing this to me? It, like, doesn't want to stay up for some fucking reason. Why? Stop it. Stop this. Does not want to stay up. Okay, that's fine. Bro. Can you stop? What is your fucking problem? Bloop. He doesn't want to stay up. It's like freaking out. Why? Stop it. It's in full screen. Maybe that's why. I'll do this. Maybe this will work. I don't have it in full screen. So, like, doesn't freak out. Okay. Streaming out for a few seconds? Yeah, sorry about that. It's a kind of a jank stream. Dude! Fucking stop going away. Why is it doing that? Why? This is so cursed. This is so cursed. Okay. Okay, well, that's the cask of Amontillado. Why are you doing this to me? Stream, why are you doing this? What if I did... No, that's not gonna work. That's not gonna fucking work. That's not gonna work. What the fuck? Bottom text. Whatever, dude. Why is Asuna not in chat? She's probably, I don't know, trick-or-treating in bed. I don't know. Okay, guys. We'll do something a little more spooky now. A little more spooky. Let's see. What can we do? What can we do here? We did a cult classic. Obviously, we gotta like do something a little more modern. Something a bit more modern. Let's see. What's that one subreddit called? Oh, what's it called? I forgot what it's called. No Sleep, that's what it's called. Let's do this. I know a few of the r/no sleep stories. Okay. Alright guys, I have a list here. We have a few categories we can select from. We have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 categories we can select from, okay? We got the ones that are just really good stories. And then we have the ones that will shock the shit out of you. And then we have the ones that will keep you up at night. And then we have the ones that will fuck you up forever. What you thinking? What are you guys feeling? Good stories? Shock the shit out of you? Keep you up at night? Or fuck up your life? In the spirit of All Hallows Eve, I'll let you guys choose how you want to ruin your night. Or, you know, improve your night, depending on how you enjoy the story. Let's progress from good story to the last ones to make it that much worse for us. Okay. Okay. Alright. Let's see. How long is this story? Pretty goddamn long. Okay, let's avoid that one. What about this one? This one's also fucking long. Oh my god, can we get like a short and sweet one? Pretty please? Pretty please? Well, you know, this one's a classic. This one's like a real famous one on the internet. Okay, so this one's... This is a series of stories. I'm only going to read the first part. So we're going to start there. Hello, Gerard. Welcome to the storytelling stream. Also, I figured out how to keep the fucking background up. Jesus Christ. Okay. So, this is a story on Reddit, r/nosleep. This story is called, these stories are called, I am a search and rescue officer for the U.S. Forest Service. I have some stories to tell. And this is posted by user Search and Rescue Woods. I'm pretty sure I have to say that, otherwise I might get fucking... someone might bitch at me or get mad at me for reading a story without anyone's permission. You know, this thing's 6 years old now. Alright, relax. Okay. I'm a search and rescue officer for the U.S. Forest Service. I have some stories to tell. I wasn't sure where else to post these stories, so I figured I'd share them here. I've been an SAR officer for a few years now, and along the way I've seen some things that I think you guys will be interested in. I have a pretty good track record for finding missing people. Most of the time, they just wander off the path, or slip down a small cliff and they can't find their way back. The majority of them have heard the old stay where you are thing, and they don't wander far. But I've had 2 cases where that didn't happen. Both bother me a lot, and I use them as motivation to search even harder on the missing person cases I get called on. The first was a little boy who was out berry picking with his parents. He and his sister were together, and both of them went missing around the same time. Their parents lost sight of them for a few seconds, and in that time, both the kids apparently wandered off. When their parents couldn't find them, they called us, and when we came out to search the area, we found the daughter pretty quickly. And when we asked where her brother was, she told us that he'd been taken away by the Bear Man. She said he gave her berries and told her to stay quiet, that he just wanted to play with her brother for a little while. The last she saw of her brother, he was riding on the shoulders of the Bear Man and seemed calm. Of course, our first thought was abduction, but we never found a trace of another human being in that area. The little girl was also insistent that he wasn't a normal man, but that he was tall and covered in hair, like a bear, and that he had a weird face. We searched that area for weeks. It was one of the longest calls I've ever been on, but we never found a single trace of that kid. The other was a young woman who was out hiking with her mom and grandpa. According to the mother, her daughter had climbed up a tree to get a better view of the forest, and she never came back down. They waited at the base of the tree for hours, calling her name before they called for help. Again, we searched everywhere, and we never found a trace of her. I have no idea where she could have possibly gone, because neither her mother nor her grandfather saw her come down. A few times, I've been out on my own searching with a canine, and they've tried to lead me straight up cliffs. Not hills, not even rock faces. Straight, sheer cliffs with no possible handholds. It's always baffling, and in those cases we usually find the person on the other side of the cliff, or miles away from where the canine has led us. I'm pretty sure there's an explanation, but it's sort of strange. One particularly sad case involved the recovery of a body. A 9-year-old girl fell down an embankment and got impaled on a dead tree at the base. It was a complete freak accident, but I'll never forget the sound her mother made when we told her what had happened. She saw the body bag being loaded into the ambulance, and she let out the most haunting, heartbroken wail I have ever heard. It was like her whole life was crashing down around her, and a part of her had died with her daughter. I heard from another SAR officer that she killed herself a few weeks after it happened. She couldn't live with the loss of her daughter. Pretty uplifting shit, huh, guys? I was teamed up with another SAR officer because we'd received reports of bears in the area. I heard we got bears in the area. Archive reference. We were looking for a guy who hadn't come home from a climbing trip when he was supposed to, and we ended up having to do some serious climbing to get to where we figured he'd be. We found him trapped in a small crevasse with a broken leg. It was not pleasant. He'd been there for almost 2 days, and his leg was very obviously infected. We were able to get him into a chopper, and I heard from one of the EMTs that the guy was absolutely inconsolable. He kept talking about how he'd been doing fine, and when he'd gotten to the top, a man had been there. He said the guy had no climbing equipment, and he was wearing a parka and ski pants. He walked up to the guy, and when the guy turned around, he said he had no face. It was just blank. He freaked out and ended up trying to get off the mountain too fast, which is why he'd fallen. He said he could hear the guy all night, climbing down the mountain and letting out these horrible muffled screams. That story bothered the hell out of me. I'm glad I wasn't there to hear it. One of the scariest things I've ever had happen to me involved the search for a young woman who'd gotten separated from her hiking group. We were out until late at night, because the dogs had picked up her scent. When we found her, she was curled up beneath a large rotted log. She was missing her shoes and her pack, and she was clearly in shock. She didn't have any injuries, and we were able to get her to walk with us back to base ops. Along the way, she kept looking behind us and asking us why that big man with black eyes was following us. We couldn't see anyone, so we just wrote it off as some weird symptom of shock. But the closer we got to base, the more agitated this woman got. She kept asking me to tell him to stop making faces at her. At one point, she stopped and turned around and started yelling into the forest, saying that she wanted him to leave her alone. She wasn't going to go with him, she said, and she wouldn't give us to him. We finally got her to keep moving, but we started hearing these weird noises coming from all around us. It was almost like coughing, but more rhythmic and deeper. It was almost insect-like. I don't really know how else to describe it. When we were within sight of base ops, the woman turns to me, and her eyes are about as wide as I can imagine a human could open them. She touches my shoulder and says, "He says to tell you to speed up. He doesn't like looking at the scar on your neck." I have a very small scar on the base of my neck, and it's mostly hidden beneath my collar. And I have no idea how this woman saw it. Right after she says that, I hear that weird coughing right in my ear, and I just about jumped out of my skin. I hustled her to ops, trying not to show how freaked out I was. But I have to say I was really happy when we left the area that night. This is the last one I'll tell, and it's probably the weirdest story I have. Now, I don't know if this is true in every SAR unit, but in mine, it's sort of an unspoken regular thing we run into. You can try asking about it with other SAR officers, but even if they know what you're talking about, they probably won't say anything about it. We've been told not to talk about it by our superiors, and at this point, we've all gotten so used to it that it doesn't even seem weird anymore. On just about every case where we're really far into the wilderness, I'm talking 30 or 40 miles, at some point, we'll find a staircase in the middle of the woods. It's almost like if you took the stairs in your house, cut them out, and put them in the forest. I asked about it the first time I saw some. And the other officer just told me not to worry about it, that it was normal. Everyone I asked said the same thing. I wanted to go check them out, but I was told very emphatically that I should never, ever go near any of them. I just sort of ignore them now when I run into them, because it happens so frequently. I have a lot more stories, and I suppose if anyone's interested, I'll tell some of them tomorrow. If anyone has any theories about the stairs, or if you've seen them too, let me know. And that is part 1 of I'm a Search and Rescue Officer for the U.S. Forest Service. It's a very, very incredible series of stories. I recommend you guys go and read the rest of them on your own time. It is actually very, very, very good and very interesting. Okay, we've done the good one. Now let's read the ones that will shock the shit out of us. How about that? Oh, I know this one. Oh, I know this one. No, wait, I don't know this one. What the fuck? These other ones. Oh. What's this one? Oh, this one's fucking gigantic. No, thanks. I'm good. I like to preserve my voice a little bit, than I... Yikes. Yikes. Oh my god. Okay, I'm not reading that one. That's a little fucked up. It's a little fucked up, dude. What's this one about? Jesus Christ, dude. I'm like skimming through these and they're fucking awful. I'm sorry, guys. These are fucking... No, these are miserable. When I was a kid, I went camping with friends, and a dad and two kids had a story. This dad, who was a SAR officer, and how a bear had been ripping people out of their tents. Yeah. Yeah, bears are fucked, dude. Oh. Hi, Dad. As well as when they look in a human hand, as well as a corpse that have been ravaged, yeah. Dude, bears are fucking scary. Alright. So here's a story called Gurgles and Bugman. This is also part of a series. But I think you can just read these out of order. I don't give a shit. I'm going to read it anyway. When you're 5, your mind lacks the experience to make informed judgments, or connect things which aren't obvious. Over the years, the details get fuzzy and forgotten. Speaking with my parents the other day, they cleared the cobwebs burying this story. I remember now much too clearly the story of Gurgles and Bugman. I had just started kindergarten that year. Everyone's a friend when you're 5, so I had no shortage of classmates. But coming from a poor family, I didn't get to see much of them outside of school. My parents spent all their waking hours trying to make ends meet and didn't have time to ferry me from house to house. So I spent my early years mostly keeping to myself, playing with a random assortment of knickknacks from the shelf in my room. Being short of money gave my family a habit of hoarding, so they hated to throw anything out. One item in particular on the shelf was a small, old-fashioned TV set. A wooden veneer box about 2 feet wide by a foot tall. It had a curved glass screen that took up half the front panel. Beside the screen was a large chrome dial used to switch channels. At the top, sat an antenna formed by 2 terribly twisted wires. When my boredom made me turn it on, I'd usually just get static and snow on that glowing black and white screen. I'd twist the heavy clicking dial, hoping to pick up some local broadcasts. Mostly, it would be some ghostly images and incoherent sound fragments. But one channel was always crystal clear. It was the Gurgles and Bugman show. Gurgles was a clown, but not a common one. He wore a thin black suit that draped his tall, skinny body with a matching tie, and oversized novelty clown shoes to complete his distinctive outfit. His pupils were completely black, like polished ebony marbles, with no trace of white around them. Black face paint around those eyes and across his cheeks and mouth made him look like a manic, grinning skeleton. It was only the crazy crop of curly hair sprouting off the sides of his head that gave him a more human look. As much as Gurgles freaked me out, Bugman scared me more. He was short and round, like a hunchbacked dwarf, with a dark cape. He had prosthetics covering his eyes to make him look like a fly, and a mouth that was rotated 90 degrees and opened from side to side. The show itself was like candid camera, with pranks played on unsuspecting people. It would always start with Gurgles and Bugman hidden away at someone's home. Gurgles would face the camera, staring at you, his bony finger touching his lips. When the unsuspecting star of the show came into view, a laugh track would begin to play. You would see them go about their nightly routines, oblivious to the conspiracy that Gurgles and Bugman had involved us in. We'd see them making dinner, or on the lounge watching TV with their family, or quietly doing their homework. Then, as Gurgles and Bugman stole their pen or moved their glass or made things disappear behind their backs, the camera angles would change as Gurgles and Bugman shifted their hiding place from the dark corners of a room to the cupboards, to the ceiling, or under the furniture, all the while looking back at you and winking. The closer they got, the louder and more laughter from the soundtrack. Eventually, when everyone went to sleep, a victim would be chosen for their prank. Waiting in the closet or under the bed, once their victim fell asleep, Bugman would crawl out and gently climb in beside them. His jaw would open sideways, and one would come a sharp straw that he'd stick in the person's neck. This always paralyzed their victim, because sometimes you could see them struggle if they woke, and saw Gurgles and Bugman on top of them. The laugh track would then be extra loud and uproarious those few times the victims awoke. Gurgles would make faces at the camera while the audience laughed, and Bugman would use his straw to drink from the person's neck. When the victim stopped struggling after a few minutes, the laughter would turn to claps and cheering. When Bugman finished, Gurgle's face would fill the whole screen with his impossibly wide, sharp-toothed grin. Then he'd whisper, "See you again soon." The way those all-black eyes pierced through the screen always gave me the chills. I hated the show, but would always be too afraid to go near the TV while it was running. One day, the TV mysteriously disappeared from my room. My parents told my 5-year-old self that they sold it to pay some bills. I accepted that without question. I was kind of glad it was gone. But yesterday, when I asked them about that TV again, they exchanged nervous glances, then filled in some missing gaps from my childhood. Halfway through that year, Derek, a classmate I didn't know very well, had died in horrific circumstances. He was murdered in his bed with a stab wound in his neck. No evidence of a break-in was ever found, so his distraught parents were taken into custody as the primary suspects. They denied all of the allegations against them. At the time, Mrs. Nolan, my teacher, told our class I'd apparently explained to her that Derek couldn't be dead because I saw him and his family on the Gurgles and Bugman show the day before. Mrs. Nolan mentioned to my parents what I'd said. They had immediately taken the TV from my room, driven it to a junkyard, and had it burnt to nothing but ashes and molten metal. That TV was in my room because it had always been broken. It was never plugged in the whole time it sat on my shelf. Whatever I saw on that screen, it wasn't from a station. So that's my story of Gurgles and Bugman. But I'm not sure if that's really the end, though. After all, do Gurgles and Bugman still perform their nightly show for some unsuspecting viewer somewhere in this world? And if so, who will be their next star? It could be you. So that's the Gurgle and Bugman show. Hope you liked it. Now, on to the ones that will keep you up tonight. So let's see this. Let's see some of these stories. Let's browse through some of them. This one is fucking gigantic. Okay, not that one. That one's also gigantic. Alright. Alright. This one looks a lot shorter. This one's a lot shorter. Hell yeah, let's do this one. Let me browse through it, make sure it's not like something super fucked up. Interesting. Like a series of emails going back and forth. Okay. Alright. I'm gonna jump in it. You know what else is gigantic, Shrubby? What? Fucking national debt? Student loans? My cynicism? Lots of things are gigantic, Kiklo. Dragons? Dragons are big. This story is called... Oh, wait a second. I need to actually, that last story, by the way, the Gurgles and Bugman show, was written by user Won't Think Straight. Just for the record. The amount of money we owe China. Well, yeah, we owe money to China, but the national debt is not made up of our debt to other countries. Our national debt is money we owe ourselves. That's the real scary thing. Okay. This story is called I Found a USB Stick. The Long Face. Posted by user 5. That's FYVE. About a week ago, I found a USB stick on the way to a PC repair business where I work part-time. It looked really standard, just a small metal box. I only saw it because the sun reflected off the case. For a second, I thought that the pavement had just erupted into light. Anyway, I decided to take it to the police station after work, but of course, because I work with computers, the temptation to look at the contents was too much. There were a few folders with incomprehensible names, and 3 others. Case notes, training, and emails. There were about 100 emails, mostly unconnected, but a few were really interesting. Usually I wouldn't go snooping through such private information, but I felt a strange urge. In the end, I kept it. I think I'm going to hand it in the police still sometime in the future. I'm just going to share with you the more interesting emails, ordered and formatted, where appropriate, for easier reading, and maybe you can help me decide what to make of it. Okay. This is a series of emails. I'm just going to say who they're from and the subject. There's a date, but I'm not going to worry about the date. Okay. From Matthew Howard. Subject, Rebecca. Hey Dan, how's it going? I know we haven't spoken lately. I've been busy with university, and there's some drama been going on in my family, and I basically had no time. Sorry about that. I'm emailing because I need some advice. What's with the fucking Hotmail account, by the way? It's about Becky, of course. You helped me out so much going through all that shit with her. I still think about her practically every day, but I've taken your advice. It's been difficult avoiding contact, but I've managed. Okay, I still have her number even though she deleted mine, but I blocked her on Facebook and all that other stuff. Well, until she fucking emailed me yesterday. She needs help. It's about John, her new guy. I want to punch his head in. She seems really upset. Should I reply? Thanks, Matt. From Dan the Man. Subject, no. Matt, no lol. Doesn't matter why. You don't talk to a bitch until at least a year after, okay? Good luck, Dan. From Becky. Subject, hey Matt, we need to talk. Okay, so there's 3 people involved. There's Matt, Dan, and Rebecca. Becky. This is Becky to Matt. Matt, I hope life is treating you well. It's been a while, huh? Oh, this is the email she sent Matt, it seems. Any girls in your life? Past week I've been thinking about you a lot. I remember the moment when you said that you never want to speak to me again so clearly. I remember the moment you said you never want to speak to me again so clearly. I didn't mean to hurt you like that. I know my old address is blocked. I made this one to contact you. If it's okay, can we talk? John has been acting weird and I need some help. I'm asking you because, well, Matt, to tell you the truth, I'm getting scared of John and you are the last guy I've been close to other than him for a while. And I don't want to tell my friends because they might judge him. Am I becoming a stereotype? Okay, if you don't immediately want to delete this email, please keep reading and I'll explain. But if you want, continue to ignore me and I will understand. I really will never try to contact you ever again. Last month, John tidied up the bathroom. Sounds stupid, I know, but he really went at it. I went in there and it was spotless. The surfaces gleamed. He put some sort of freshener down and everything was exactly in its right place. You know how much stuff I have? We can't fit both our toothbrushes in the cupboards, so we lay them by the sink. They were parallel to each other, completely straight, completely aligned. I was a bit freaked out, but I was also proud, you know? He just acted nonchalant like it was nothing. Soon, the rest of the house is super tidy. All the books are ordered alphabetically, everything put away, the magazines on the coffee table stacked up in a square. I'm a bit weirded out, and I asked him what's up. He says that it doesn't matter. Why would he be doing so much for me? My first thought was that he was cheating on me. I have his Facebook password, so I checked, and nothing. His phone? Nothing. At the time, I was still suspicious, but not anymore. Dude, women, am I right? Come on. Come on, ladies. A week and a bit ago, I go into the kitchen, and he's rooting through the cutlery drawer. He's picking up pieces of cutlery, fuck me, dude, cutlery, examining them, and laying some on the counter and putting some back in the drawer. The ones on the counter are perfectly aligned. I asked him what the fuck he was doing, and he responded with, "We don't need all this cutlery, Becky. I'm gonna throw these out." I said, "John, I know that's bullshit." And he got really angry, really defensive, so I left. Last night I woke up at about 1, and John wasn't in bed. I heard him rummaging downstairs. I snuck to the top of the stairs. Remember the coat hanger in the wall? Remember the coat hanger in the hall? We put a small bookcase next to it, and he was rifling for the books, taking some out. He was speaking to himself, whispering numbers and equations. I said, "John?" And he looked up. "What are you doing?" He said, "Honey, there are 75 books on this bookcase. That's 3 times 25, which is 5 times 5. It likes 5s. I was shocked and said, "What likes 5s? He said, "The long face." And then started sorting books again, ignoring me. I guess his behavior over the past month got to me and I snapped. I ran downstairs, shouted at him, and tried to put some of the books back in the bookcase. He grabbed me, Matt. He fucking grabbed me. I couldn't move, he was so strong. He pulled his free hand back and I thought he was going to hit me. He said very carefully, very slowly, "This bookcase needs 49 books. 7 times 7. It doesn't like 7s. It likes 5, okay? I'm going to have to train you up." I was so scared I ran out of the house. Wow, that was longer than I thought. I'm staying at Alex's right now. Can you come over? Even if you can't help sort this thing out, talking would be great. Hope to see you soon. Becky. From Matthew Howard. Subject, I don't care. I'm going to do it. Dan, I thought it through and I'm going to talk to her. I don't care what you think. Matt. From Matthew Howard. Subject, holy shit, it's worse than I thought. Dan, Sorry about being a dick in that last email, Dan, but I think I still love her. Foolish men. But listen, shit has really hit the fan, and at this point, I just need someone to tell. I went around to Alex's. Becky is staying there, and as soon as I knock on the door, she flies out and gives me the strongest hug I've ever felt. Her face was so red, I think she'd been crying nonstop since she left her house. Shit, I forgot you didn't know. John was being weird and she felt she had to leave, so I comforted her and got her some hot chocolate. Alex had fucked off somewhere. She probably didn't want to deal with Becky. Once she had calmed down enough, she asked if I would escort her back to her house and maybe confront John. I was looking forward to that, let me tell you. When we got to her house, she told me I should go in first. On the doorstep were 7 neat piles of books. I slowly pushed the door open and called out to John. There was no answer. Becky had told me before that the house was tidy, but walking in there freaked me out a little. It was like the house had no inhabitants, had never had inhabitants. We searched around and I kept calling for John, but he didn't respond. Every room was so fucking tidy and put together, we were both on the edge of saying, let's just go. And then I checked the bathroom. There was a trail of blood leading from the sink to the bath. In the bath was John. He was so pale. His arms slit from palm to elbow. I almost threw up and tried to stop Becky from coming in. But she did, and then she threw up. I called the police, obviously, but while we were waiting, I noticed something. John was holding a small book. It looked like a diary. You know those moleskin things? One of those. And I took it. I don't know why. Becky didn't notice. She was pretty shaken up. Still, of course, what should I do with this thing? I can't give it in now. Actually, when are you in town? I'd love to speak to you in person. Matt. From Dan the Man. Subject, meeting up. Matt. Wow, that's fucked up. Hope you're okay, man. Listen, I'm still away for like a month. 2 at the most. Don't do anything stupid, okay? I hate not talking in person. I'm so bad at it. You'll be alright. Dan. From Matthew Howard. Subject, the diary. Dan. I read the fucking diary. I guess it was written by John and it explains his behavior. It's not really a diary, more an encyclopedia, I guess. Apparently John believed in this entity called the Long Face. It doesn't really explain what it is, but it lists loads of rules for dealing with this thing. It likes multiples of 5s and will seek them out. It hates 7s, stuff like that. Pile things in this arrangement, etc. What a freak. Matt. From Matthew Howard. This is 3 days later. I guess freakishness is contagious. Fucking tongue emoticon. Dan, the weirdest thing happened to me today. I was getting rid of some of my old DVDs. Holy shit, remember 4 Lions? Such a good movie. And I noticed there were 5 DVDs on one of the shelves in front of me. It made me think of the Long Face. I laughed at myself. But as I went to put the DVD back, I was holding... put the DVD I was holding into the bag, I saw a face. On the bag, I mean. The 2 clips looked like eyes, and the opening looked like the mouth. Yeah, laugh if you must. I got two DVDs out of the bag and put them on the shelf. The face was gone after that. I probably knocked the bag into a different position. I don't know. Becky's doing fine now. She wants to move out of her old house, but the contract lasts until September. So she's going to try and find some replacement tenants. I know it's very soon, but I think I'm going to ask her out again. We should get back together. What do you think? Matt. This next email is 4 days later. From Matthew Howard. Subject, I think I'm losing my mind. Dan. Becky said yes. I took her to that Italian place you love, and we pretended it was our first ever date. It was great. But listen, this long face stuff is freaking me out. I keep seeing it everywhere. I'll be walking along, and a car will pass, and the front of it will look like a face. I keep seeing faces in the froth of my coffee, and the shapes that buildings make. I'm going to make a confession to you, Dan. I started counting things. The books and DVDs first, then cutlery. I think it's because I heard that John counted the stuff too. Everything has to be multiples of 7. If they aren't, or even worse, if I see a multiple of 5, I see more faces. Each face I see looks angrier and angrier. As I'm typing this, I can see the speakers. The speakers has eyes, and the keyboard has a mouth. I know this bullshit is all in my head, but I can't help it. I'm having problems sleeping. Matt. From Matthew Howard. 3 days later. Subject. It's getting worse. Dan. You know that drawer that everyone has, filled with all the shit in your house that doesn't have anywhere else to be? Well, it's been driving me crazy. I can't know if it's safe if I don't tidy it up. Matt. From Matthew Howard, the same day. Subject. Becky. Frowny face. Hey, Dan. Becky caught me putting all the screwdrivers from the drawer in size order. She left, Dan. She left. Matt. From Matthew Howard, 2 days later. Subject. Why aren't you replying? Hey, Dan, I was walking to work today. Today? And it's today with a 0 in between for some reason. I saw a car face and I was so scared. And there's a 4 in the middle of scared. It was coming towards me and it looked like it wanted blood. I thought it was going to swerve and hit me, and that would be that. I figured out how to stop it though. It was red, so I started counting all the red cars. When I'm counting, it seems to get confused. As I was walking into work, I was at 20. I pretended that I counted one more, but it knew. Oh, shit. 20 is your multiple of 5, but 21 is your multiple of 7. I pretended that I counted one more, but it knew. Tomorrow, I'm going to do blue, and going has a 7 in the middle of it for some reason. Matt. 2 days later, from Matthew Howard. Subject, blank. I just want this to stop. From Matthew Howard. Like 4 days later. Subject, blank. Why did I read the book? People need to be trained to repel the long face. They need to know. But why me? Frowny face. From Matthew Howard, the same day. Subject. I counted the pages in the diary. 125. 5 times 5. Maybe the long face wants us to read it. What if I miscounted? 126 is a multiple of 7. I'll do it again. From Matthew Howard, same day. Subject. We had a good one. Dan, I'm going to burn the book, Matt. What? I'm going to burn the book, Matt. If no one can read about this, maybe whatever fucking evil it is will just dissipate. Hopefully my emails haven't been enough to trigger it for you. Don't come over, Dan. We are no longer friends. Matt. From Dan the Man. A day later. Subject, I'm coming over. Matt, I'm back in a week. I'm coming over. Why the fuck haven't you answered your phone? Dan. And that's it. There are no more emails by Dan, Matt, or Becky. I thought about it for a while, and I reckon something happened to Matt. I don't know whether he succeeded in burning that journal or what might have happened to it if he didn't, but something must have got him. I keep thinking about that last email. Why wouldn't he answer the phone? I don't get it. Why wouldn't he answer the phone? Oh. 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 Hmm. It's funny because the original poster's name is 5. Shit. So funny. Okay. Well, that's that story. That is the stories that'll keep you up tonight. So guys, be sure you're stacking your things in multiples of 7s tonight. Make sure you count to 7 before you go to bed. And maybe don't look at your fingers or your toes. Realize that there are 5 of them. So now, at the end of the night, we are at the unfortunate stories that are called the ones that will fuck you up forever. And I see one that I know that I'm going to read. Okay. So, complete transparency. This is a fucked up story, and it's not as bad as other stories that I could have read. This one's not completely, degenerate, disgusting. This one's like, oh my god, what the fuck, kind of terrible. So, this one is called, and this is not safe for work at all. If you guys you get a little squeamish about it, I don't recommend listening to this. It's fucked up. This one's called The Pancake Family. This one is written by A.A. Peterson. And A.A. Peterson actually has a book in Amazon that you guys can check out. I think it's called The Family Claw, or The Claw Family, or something like that. Actually, had a interaction with A.A. Peterson because I was wanting to do a narration of this story in particular. And I do have the audio recorded for this. I've just never got around to editing it. So, this one is read in the perspective of a character, a detective. So I'm going to be role-playing this detective. That pale, huh? Jesus, I bet I look like a ghost. I feel like I've bled out 2 gallons. What? No, not a scratch. Sorry to ramble, it's just that I'm, what's the word for it? Detached. Strange feeling. Seen it enough times in the field, sort of figured it was, if I was ever going to experience it myself, and I would have experienced it by now. Hell of a thing. I feel like I'm floating outside of my body. Just cut the cord and I'd float away. Did you see the crime scene? Don't look at the pictures. Don't even touch the file. You'll thank me. I can't get my knees to stop rattling. Is that why you're holding onto your coffee like that? Shaking the table, aren't I? Hold on a second, let me back up my chair. There. That's better. Okay, this is the interviewer. This is the interviewer. We've got to go official now, Hob. Can you confirm for the record that you're waiving your right to an attorney? No, I'm still not interested in an attorney. Yes, I'm waiving my rights. Sorry. And I'm as sound of mind as I'll ever be. Interviewer. Are you sure? Yes. Let the record show that Detective Hobson Millgate, retired, has waived his right to an attorney. I won't need a lawyer after the DA stops puking and considers taking it public. They're not showing that to a jury. Interviewer. Are you ready to begin? No? But I'll talk anyway. Interviewer. What led you to the crime scene on the night in question? Would you believe I was planning a fishing trip before this started? Never mind. Hold on, I'm thinking. Hard to organize it. Never been on this side of the interrogation table before. I guess it started with a reporter, name of Bamer. She contacted me a week ago by email and claimed she had no information on the Driscoll murders. I was the lead investigator. The case had gone unsolved for 20 years. Cold as ice. Frankly, I thought it was all bullshit at first. You know how that can be. Most of the time, it's not even on purpose. Everyone thinks they know something that will crack a case wide open. Theories are easy when you don't have to check them against evidence. Driscoll murders were a big story around these parts. Lots of interest. Lots of press. Over the years, I must have gotten a couple of hundred shit theories. When I retired, I handed the investigation over to Detective Carroll. But I didn't want him to be bothered. I know he's busy with the recent gang activity. I figured I'd check it out as a courtesy. I wasn't expecting it to go anywhere. I met her for lunch at Purrier's Cafe. Good-looking blonde gal. Professional. But, so, she didn't fit the typical profile of a hoaxer or conspiracy theorist. Not that I put too much faith in profiles. She also might have been one of those creepy gals that get off on death. God knows I've dealt with those, too. I still thought she might be pulling my leg. Or maybe she had been fooled, too. But she had a file with her. Looked legit. It contained what appeared to be a confession by the Driscoll. Well, he wasn't a murderer, was he? I really do wish he had been, you know? It would have been so much better for everyone. Interviewer. Can you please fill us in on the relevant details of the Driscoll case? Let's see, it would have been 20 years ago now. Thinking of all those years. I mean, 20 goddamn years. That's a long time to be. Take your time, Bob. Thanks. The Driscolls were a family of 6 out in the suburbs. Upper middle class. Father was an attorney. Mother ran her own business selling pottery out of the house. 4 children, all high school age and below. Good kids, honor roll, no criminal records to speak of. The oldest son was caught smoking dope at his high school once, but nothing much besides that. Just the typical stuff you find when you look at people too closely. They disappeared October 13th, 1994. No trace was found of the bodies. The mystery, and seeing as how it was right around Halloween, is probably why the press went so crazy. You still see it show up on some of those unsolved mystery shows. A whole family disappeared and no one saw a thing. No one knew where they went. A neighbor lodged a sound complaint, which is how we got involved. There was an alarm going off and they figured it might be an intruder or something. We dispatched a vehicle. When no one answered the door, the patrolman went in to investigate. There were obvious signs of a struggle in the youngest daughter's bedroom. The bed had been flipped over and the sheets were torn. The alarm was a carbon monoxide detector. We found elevated concentrations of carbon monoxide in the fabric of all the bedspreads except the youngest daughter's. We wouldn't have known to look without the alarm. The neighbor indicated the alarm had been sounding for over a day, and he'd been unable to get anyone to answer the door during that time. They also found several aluminum canisters and some hoses in a dumpster a few blocks away. At the time, we assumed the Driscolls had been gassed and disposed of at a different location. excepting, of course, the daughter, who woke up at the end and put up a struggle. Investigation gave no leads. Of course, our first thought was that the father did it. We checked it out, but he didn't have a motive. No leads to follow up on. Same with the mother. Surviving family checked out clean, too. The father had a few clients who might have had motive, but the means weren't there. He was a divorce lawyer, but not for anybody who could have taken out an entire family without leaving evidence. There was a chemistry teacher who lived 3 blocks away, and we investigated him for a while because of the canisters, but he alibied out. Same with a dentist who lived nearby. The wife had an online flirtation with some kid out in England, but nothing adulterous, and he wasn't even in the country at the time of the murder. We settled, unhappily, on the idea of a random killing. Hardest pieces of shit to catch when there's no pattern like that. We must have sunk tens of thousands of man-hours into this case, chasing down leads. Nothing ever came of it. We did track down the canisters, though. They were stolen from a laboratory 10 miles away. There was no security footage. We couldn't find any leads on the thief. After 6 months with no repeat attacks, investigation went cold. The Driscolls had been knocked out and abducted. Like I said, no one ever found the bodies. Who was to say they just hadn't run off? Until, well, I'd rather only talk about that once. Interviewer. What can you tell us about the confession? Okay, what can you tell us about how the confession wound up with Miss Bamer? She'd been following the case for some years, both personally and as a reporter. Like I said, it captured the imagination of a lot of people. Even seemingly normal folks thought it could have been aliens, ghosts, or demons. Miss Bamer's published a retrospective on the murders given the 20-year anniversary. It caused a renewed interest, which happened from time to time. As usual, I declined a comment, citing lack of new evidence. I remembered her asking for my quote, though, which is why I accepted the lunch meeting. After publication of the article, Miss Bamer claimed that she had been sent a file. She wished to have me authenticate. The most pertinent part of the file was a confession. I assured Miss Bamer that such false documents are not uncommon, especially on older cases like this, and that I'd personally heard 24 confessions of the Driscoll murders. She was insistent. Once I felt she wasn't trying to pull off a hoax or getting off on the idea of talking about a murder, I agreed to the meeting. She stated the confession had been mailed to her in the same envelope she showed to me when we met for lunch. Interviewer. Can you describe its contents? Old newspaper clippings outlining the progress of my investigation. They seemed appropriately yellowed. So I guess they were from the trophy book of the perpetrator. There were also 6 photos alleging to be of the individual members of the Driscoll family, as well as several other photos of the facility where they had been taken. Look at that. My hands won't stop shaking. See? Trying as hard as I can, I just can't make it happen. I'll have to ask the paramedic for a sedative when I'm done with the statement. I don't think I'll be able to sleep otherwise. No, I'm fine for now. I don't want anything to interfere with my recollection for your recording. Just carrying it around in my head is like... Sorry, I'll stay focused. The photos were of the Driscoll family, of course. At the time, I didn't know that. The photos had aged poorly, and they could have been of anyone. It was very hard to distinguish features. However, given the elaborate nature of the file, I figured it did warrant a further look. As to the confession letter, well, it was brief. gave an address. That's the first thing I noticed. I couldn't locate the address online, which meant it had to be old. The confession letter said, "Stop printing lies. I never killed anyone. It just took a while to get them ready for breakfast." There was no signature. I just remembered something. God damn it. We got sent a breakfast menu a month after the disappearance. Someone had drawn a red circle on a picture of pancakes. The letter said, they're not dead. They're getting ready for breakfast. We put it in the junk lead file. Oh, God. Interviewer. Detective Milgate, do you need a moment? Oh, God. How could I have known? We tried to track down that menu. We could never find out where it had come from. It wasn't any place local. The identifying information had been cut out. I don't know what else we could have done. Dear God. Interviewer. Why did you decide to personally investigate the location mentioned in the letter? Sorry. I wanted to make sure it wasn't a hoax. Still wasn't convinced. I've had 20 years of people sending me fake evidence. I guess maybe the case captured my imagination too. I always figured one day I'd think of something I'd overlooked and solve the whole thing. Felt unbelievable to have someone dump the answer in my lap. I needed to see it with my own 2 eyes. Miss Boehmer had pinpointed the location with city records, but neither of us was sure if it was still there. It was an abandoned industrial building. The last time it had a valid mailing address was 50 years ago. It might have caved in for all we knew. I think I also want to be the one to crack it. Whether or not it was dumped in my lap, that case was hung over my head for 20 years. Miss Boehmer and I agreed to meet there the following morning. Can you describe the crime scene? Yes. It was an industrial building, as I stated, approximately 120 feet long by maybe 45 feet wide. It was a wooden structure, and at first the conditions seemed to match the neighboring buildings. However, I noticed the facade had been recently patched in a few locations. Further investigation also revealed that the entrance had been chained and locked. My understanding was that it used to be a sheet metal shop. At least, excuse me, is there a garbage can? I might vomit. Thank you. Gagging noises here. Sorry, I thought I was empty. No, I want to get this done with. Then I'm going to want that sedative. I could smell something from inside the building. Very faintly. I figured that would count as probable cause, not that I needed it as a civilian, but you never forget the way a corpse smells. They were bad enough that they had that same smell. I hadn't forgotten how to pick a lock, so I let myself inside. You know, I really do wish they had been corpses. I really do wish he had been a serial killer. I really do. Please say you believe me. I do. Can you describe the interior of the building? I'm trying to focus through this, I really am. I'm sorry. It's just that I'd like to go to sleep after this for a very long time. Is the paramedic here? Is the sedative ready? Thank goodness. The warehouse had not been as abandoned as we were previously led to believe. The interior had a hallway with 6 rooms. The construction was old but visibly newer than the rest of the building. The walls between each room had been soundproofed. There were no windows to the outside or doorways between the rooms themselves. The only access was through the hallway. I tried to make Miss Boehmer leave at that point. You see, the smell was stronger inside. You could feel it, the smell. Like a grit getting stuck in your nose, like bits of sand all over your skin. The rooms contained presses, hydraulic presses, 4-foot by 8-foot custom presses. I couldn't figure out what they were at first because they were hovering over what looked like hospital beds. There were IV bags in each room as well as other medical equipment. That's how he kept them alive for so long, of course. I think I might be seeing black spots. Do you need to take a break? The idea of having to start this again is worse than the idea of finishing it. Then please describe your next course of action. The building was obviously an active crime scene, I had no doubt at this point. I was in the lair of what I believed to be a serial killer. I tried to tell Miss Bamer to leave several times. She refused on the grounds that it would not be right to leave me on my own. There wasn't much time to make an issue out of it. My opinion of her was that she was a bit nosy, but basically alright. I didn't think she'd be a liability if she stayed out of my way. I had to make a judgment call as to whether or not I should proceed on my own in case the family was somehow, impossibly, still alive and perhaps in danger, or if I should leave and call for backup. I had told my wife where I was going previously, so I knew my absence would be noted and reported if the worst happened. Neither of us could get cell phone reception. Sorry, I'm rambling. It was then that I heard not even a gasp. It was like a gasp, but not really. I don't want to describe it any more than that. There was a sound. It drew my attention further on. I had to act. That's all that matters. There were some stairs at the very far end of the warehouse descending into a basement. I told Miss Bamer to remain behind and pulled my service revolver. I had a flashlight on my person as well and turned it on as I descended into the basement. The basement had been hand-dug, maybe even over the course of the entire 20-year disappearance, I don't know. The floor was dirt, and there was a tunnel that retreated back far enough that it had to be supported with struts at regular intervals. When my flashlight first illuminated the stack, I wish they'd been dead. I wish he'd been a serial killer. Please take a moment. After I recovered, my first thought was, thank God, they're all dead. Thank God, they're all dead. He starts gagging here. I'm 64 years old, for Christ's sakes. I'm not a young man who can forget things anymore. When you're young, you have this sense that you're invincible, and you could never going to die. I don't have that to protect me anymore. Look at me whining. When they had that done to them. It's my fault. I should have found them. Saved them somehow. I'm sorry, Hob. I've got to ask. Can you describe the scene? Yeah, I can. I didn't know what I was looking at first. Hell, I still don't. It was a stack, maybe 2 feet thick. From the stink and coloring, it was obviously made of flesh. I thought maybe he'd hacked them up and stacked them up into pieces. That would have been bad enough. The first thing that alerted me to the truth was the eyeball. On the top of the stack was a perfectly round eyeball, in the middle of a socket that had been distorted to the size of a saucer. That's what I realized what I was looking at was 20 goddamn years of torture, basically. He had the entire Driscoll family under those presses for 20 years, keeping them alive on an IV drip, increasing the pressure on them so very slowly that their bodies had time to adapt, until they'd been flattened like pancakes. He squished them by about a quarter-inch every year for 20 years. Then he pulled them out when they were too broken and wretched to move, without any chance of recovery, and stacked them on top of each other. I've got no idea what for. I don't want to know. And I was still thinking, thank God they're all dead. When the one on top started gasping again. What did it say? What did they say? Nothing at first. It couldn't speak without help. I think it would have been Avery Driscoll. Not that I could tell much about the gender or the age, but hair was blonde where there was hair. The head was a mess of scars. I think the son of a bitch who did this must have removed parts of their skulls. I've got no idea how he got their heads so flat, otherwise. Not as flat as the rest of the bodies, but flat. Who the hell knows how their brains handled that? Their lips were punctured by teeth everywhere. After the presses had flattened out their noses, I guess. Avery was 14 when he disappeared. I stopped shaking. God damn weird how the way our bodies work, isn't it? What else? That was a machine, a sort of pump. Followed a hose with my flashlight and realized everyone in the stack was hooked up to the pump. I don't think they could breathe on their own, you see, not after a while. There simply wasn't enough volume for their lungs to inflate. There was some sort of opening cut right into each of their chests. There was a switch in the pump. I don't know why I pressed it. I was in a panic. I wanted to do something. Maybe some stupid part of me thought if I switch it on, they would inflate and be okay. I switched it. It increased the volume of air to the topmost hose. I could hear the pump working harder. Which is when Avery Driscoll started to scream. He begged me to kill him. He said other things, too. He didn't make much sense. Kept yelling bane of error over and over again. Something about the family, too. I didn't understand it. He was in pain. I would hope he had gone insane several years previously. Oh my God. My thoughts exactly. I didn't know what to do. He wouldn't stop screaming. I believe he was convinced I was his torturer. A closer look at his eye revealed that it was mostly a mess of white scar tissue. He was blind as a bat. You know, I spoke with some burn victims once. They told me that they managed to find meaning and purpose again after a while. I don't know how anyone in the Driscoll family could have ever done that. I stated my name. I told them I was a detective. I told them I was there to help. I repeated it over and over again, knowing, of course, there was nothing that anyone anywhere could do. Miss Boehmer arrived, drawn by the sound. Before she saw the stack, she told me that I had screamed and she had come to help, but I do not remember having done so. Nevertheless, she arrived. Then she saw the stack and screamed, but I was intent on Avery Driscoll. He was able to hear. He became lucid for a few moments. It was a strain to understand what he said, but I will never be able to forget it. Please kill me. It hurts. I don't want to be a monster. Please kill me and tell my family I died a long time ago. I don't know if they're still looking for me. Don't tell them. Don't let them know what happened to me. Please kill me. He could still cry, and he did, although his tear ducts were too deformed for it to be noticeable. I should have forced Miss Boehmer to leave. That is the only action in the matter which I regret more than failing to solve the case 20 years ago. Not just for her own sake, but for what she did next. I don't think she could have wounded them any more deeply if she'd tried. She took away the last comfort any of them in that stack had. You see, they had not been able to speak to one another for 20 years. He said, "That's all of them, isn't it? That's the entire Driscoll family. They're all alive in there, the whole family." 20 years, each member of the Driscoll family had been unaware their fellow inmates were the other members of their family. They'd all been holding out hope their family was okay. All of them dreaming someone out there loved them and was free from suffering. Do you know what the screams of 6 people, tortured over 2 decades, smashed down to a width of 4 inches, sounds like when they're all stacked on top of one another? It sounds like the gates of hell swinging open. I think that's enough, Detective Milgate. Not yet. It was my mistake. I should have tried harder. Track down that lead. Maybe that's what they meant. Screaming that, it was my error, so it was my responsibility. I shot them. Mercy is hard. But I owed it to them. I am the one that failed to save them. It only took 1 bullet to go all the way through. I emptied my revolver, though, to make sure they didn't linger, to give them that final piece. It was the only kindness I had to give them. We left and called for backup after that. Neither Miss Bamer nor I wished to remain with the bodies. I elected to not follow the crime scene investigators back into the basement. I asked if I could make my statement and leave. And after one of them saw what I had seen, they agreed. May I have my sedative now? Yes. Yes, of course. Thank you. Please show him the paramedic. I'll roll up my sleeve. My wife has diabetes, so I'm well aware of the routine. Oh, and, please make sure you have the same courtesy available for Miss Bamer. She seemed to have it worse than me after. Poor woman couldn't even throw up or cry. Of course, do you know where she is now? She told the lead of the crime scene she was going home, but we haven't been able to reach her. Did you try the paper? Which paper? The Daily World. Are you sure? There's no one by the name of Bamer on staff with the Daily World. And that is the end of an incredibly cursed story. So the thing is, those Avery Driscoll saying bane of error probably was yelling Bamer. Miss Bamer was the fucking serial killer and led the detective down there so she could fucking show off her work. What a horrifying and disgusting story. Happy Halloween, everyone. It is now November 1st, at least where I live. That's the end of the stream. Have a very wonderful month. And hopefully you can get some sleep tonight. Good night, everyone. Bye-bye.